Welcome to the Naturalistic Nurse Podcast with Audrey Christie, helping you shift from Band-Aid fixes to root cause resolutions that stick.
Hey friends, welcome to part 2 of our adrenal fatigue or adrenal stress information. Last episode, in episode 098, we talked about how to help adrenal fatigue if you're suffering from it. And you might be feeling a lot of tiredness, you might have trouble going to sleep and or waking up. You might be craving salt or sugar, have unexplained weight loss or weight gain, or if you're relying on stimulants like caffeine, energy drink, pills, and patches to keep you alert and awake throughout the day, then adrenal fatigue is likely something that you need to address. Sometimes it's also called chronic fatigue. This kind of falls into that same category. Now, conventional medicine calls the term adrenal fatigue or adrenal stress a myth because it only acknowledges the extremes of adrenal problems like Addison's disease, where the adrenals are barely functioning, or Cushing's disease, where they're producing way too much cortisol. But like everything else, there's an entire spectrum in between of adrenal dysfunction, if you will, that causes all sorts of symptoms that we experience in our everyday lives. So that's what we're going to talk about again today. Last week, we talked about 3 things you could start doing right away. The very first one, the most impactful one, is meditation. We also touched on some essential oils that you can use, as well as some energy medicine. And today we're going to kind of round those suggestions out. Meditation is still, by and large, the very best thing you can do. Today we're talking about nutrition, movement, and supplements as well. So last week we talked about how cortisol gets a super bad name, but the shiny side of cortisol is that it is a necessary chemical messenger that helps us to regulate our daily energy needs. Now, we also learned last week that adrenal fatigue, adrenal stress is not really a problem with the adrenals themselves. By and large, it's a problem with our brain and how it perceives stress, because we know that when the adrenals are acting funny, if there's nothing physically wrong with them, we have to back it up. And where does the adrenal get the message from in order to produce cortisol and all the other chemical messengers that come from the adrenal glands? Well, it gets the message from the brain, which is why the strategy of meditation works so well. The strategy of stress reduction works so well because it's the only thing scientifically proven to change the way we perceive stressors. Now, I gave you a meditation guidebook, 2 guidebooks, one new one and one quick cheat sheet to help you get started in meditation. That was in Thursday's newsletter, and it'll be in this coming Thursday's newsletter. That's something that I give to peeps on my subscriber list. So if you're not there, head over to the show notes at audreychristie.com/099 to make sure you get yours. We also talked about energy medicine, K27 massage, and the flush. Now, as with most things, the most effective strategy is a multi-pronged approach. So we're going to talk about those other prongs, right? We talked about mental and energetic stress, but now we're going to talk about nutrition and movement and supplementation. So remember 2 things here as we dive into this information. First, there is no one protocol that works for all people because you are unique. So these strategies work, but they are not always the lock and key for every person. You might require something else to help you get over the hump or prevent this. So, secondly, I am not a doctor. I'm not even your practitioner. And even if I am, this episode is for your education only. Ultimately, you are responsible for your own health and wellness. So take what resonates and leave what doesn't. And if you have questions, please ask. Now, that little disclaimer actually brings me to another bit of information. I will give you the link on the show notes page at audreychristie.com/099. Over the years, I've been working really hard to try and come up with a way, something that would fix it for a lot of people and make it accessible. Now, the issue is with making something like functional and integrated medicine accessible is that it's very expensive to provide the service, right? The second part of that is when you try to put it in a program, when people try to sell you a program to heal your body from the root cause, in order for it to be encompassing enough to cover all the possibilities, it would have to cost so much money or take you years to go through, depending on your current level of, medical and, anatomic and scientific education. So, what I've done was to help address the accessibility issue as well as the expense issue is created a group appointment where you learn how to take control of your health, how to figure out your own root cause with my guidance. So, it's a small group, a group appointment. Our next group appointment starts on February 12th. It is an online program. Cost to be a part of it is a very low barrier to entry. It's $20 per session. If you are in a disadvantaged situation, if you meet the income requirements, if you're on state Medicaid or Medicare, then you can get 50% off of that, and it's actually $10 a session. I've experimented with doing it free of charge, and I've found that unless people are paying for it, then they don't necessarily show up, right, and do the work. So that is available on the show notes page at audreychristie.com. Let's get started with nutrition for chronic fatigue, adrenal stress. Now, as far as nutrition goes, as with all things, eating more plant food will help adrenal fatigue, but it can be difficult, if not impossible, to make good nutrition choices when we're actively fatigued. So if we zoom in to that nutrition choice, what we're trying to accomplish here overall is blood sugar balance. So often starting with just cutting back on heavily refined sugar and processed foods that are full of sugar and sugar substitutes gives us a step in the right direction. We know that these foods with all of this excess sugar and refined sugar in particular are heavily associated with increased cortisol and increased chemical messengers that are adding fuel to the fire of adrenal stress. Now, here's the thing. A lot of people say, you know what, Audrey, just give me a supplement, just give me a pill. I want it to be natural, but I want it to work fast. And you can't out-supplement poor nutrition. You might be able to for a very brief period of time, but in the long run, it's not going to pan out well. Supplements are good for correcting nutrition deficiencies in a hurry, but they're not a good long-term solution. And we're going to talk more about that in the supplement area, what supplements are helpful, right? But the best way to look at your nutrition is that you need all the plants and all the good healthy fats. Now, statistically, we know if you look at the studies that we need a minimum of 31 different plants in our body each and every week to have the best gut health. The best gut health is measured by the number of different bacteria we have in our gut. You should have around 1,000 different species. People who live in parts of the world that don't have any processed food, and they also don't suffer from a lot of the chronic health issues that we have, they have about 1,500 species in their gut. But the thing is, there is no pill or powder that fixes that, period. The only solution is to eat 30 different plants. Now, we know this because these studies that came out of the Gut Health Project in 2018, that having 31 different plants in your body each week is the number one best predictor for a healthy gut. Okay? Now, this falls below. The reason why it made episode 2 instead of episode 1 of adrenal fatigue is because if we're stuck in that chronic stress mode, that fight or flight mode that we talked about, then we can really struggle to find the balance and to avoid those temporary energy boosting foods, right? So that's why it falls to number 4, because it's not necessarily something that is easy or feasible to fix right out of the gate. You see, the gut is actually a brain. It sends signals to the brain to release chemical messengers affecting the body function, just like the brain itself does. So while we're fixing the primary messenger in the head with meditation and energy work, you also have to take that multi-pronged approach and heal your gut to improve the function of the gut and the brain, and then by downstream effect, the adrenals. The next thing I want to talk about is supplementation. I've been really hard on supplements lately because I keep running into these people who have come earnestly following whatever practitioner's directions, and they're on $700, $800. The most I've ever seen is $5,000 worth of pills, powders, and potions from their whatever holistic practitioner. And that drives me nuts because it's just taking a natural, albeit better approach, so more beneficial for your body than conventional medicine, but it's taking that conventional medicine approach and applying it to holistic, functional, integrative health and wellness. And that's not what we are, okay? So supplements aren't the lock and key to fixing adrenal fatigue, but they can certainly play a significant role in supporting your adrenals temporarily to get back to functioning so you can make the necessary lifestyle changes to heal your body. I want you to think of supplementation like medication. It's not a long-term solution, but it can help us get over the hump. It can help us improve nutrition. It can help us move through whatever illness we're having to get on the other side of it and be able to improve nutrient absorption and incorporate more healthful activities. One of my favorite supplements to support the adrenals actually tastes really, really bad. So I don't recommend it unless it's a super severe case. What you will generally find happening when somebody, especially when you have a conventional medicine doctor that maybe just hasn't quite crossed that expert bridge to the functional and holistic side, generally what they're going to give you is a bovine organ supplement. So they have taken the adrenal glands harvested from usually a pig, sometimes cattle. They have chopped it up into little freeze-dried pieces, put it in a capsule, and then you take it. So here's why it works. Because there is cortisol and adrenaline and all of those things inside that tissue, you temporarily feel better, not a long-term solution. So I don't often recommend doing that unless you've already crossed the bridge into you're not overproducing cortisol, you're really underproducing cortisol. So if we're really desperate, like need a boost to get out of bed, then sometimes that is an option. I don't feel like, in my experience, that it is healing though. It's like drinking coffee to wake up if you didn't sleep enough the night before. Is it going to get the job done and wake you up? Sure. But is it fixing the problem of not having any sleep? Not at all. So what I like to recommend instead is something called adaptogens. An adaptogen is an herb that has a multi-system nourishing effect. A lot of times they're called plant medicine. And historically, like if you look way back, they were kind of woven into daily life as nutrients, right? And there's really something to be said for including adaptogens in your salad or your smoothie or your wrap so that you can have your fullest expression of wellness, right? But today we're talking about more targeted repair. So some of the things that I like to include adaptogen-wise are ashwagandha and reishi, and then motherwort or holy basil, depending on a few different characteristics. Now, again, those supplements are very beneficial to all the systems in our body. They're called adaptogens because they adapt to what you need, so they don't over-tweak and under-tweak. A few other supplements that you should be getting from your food, but maybe not, you might need to temporarily supplement are like a good B-complex vitamin, magnesium glycinate, and then a good liposomal vitamin C. The last thing I want to talk about is movement. And so a lot of times people figure out that maybe they have some kind of adrenal fatigue because they're like, dang, I just don't have the motivation to get up and do anything. Like I know I should run. I bought these cute new shoes. I know I should go to yoga. I know I should just get up and go for a walk, but I just can't. It's like I'm glued to the couch. So moving your body, of course, has been shown as a highly effective way to manage stress and even improve adrenal fatigue. But like I said, in real life, it's super hard if you're fatigued to make yourself exercise. So the important thing to remember is when you're trying to use movement to help adrenal fatigue or help anything at all, it's best not to overdo it. So think gentle, think yin yoga, think restorative yoga, think going for a walk versus a run. Otherwise, if you're overdoing it, you're creating more stress response in the body. Now, if you are super fit and you can easily and joyfully perform all the strenuous movements and activities, like if you're somebody that can go out and run 3, 5, 10 miles and not be sore and tired for the rest of the day, it's not strenuous in your body, then do that. But if you're trying to heal adrenal fatigue and can do that, then make sure those big activities occur before lunch. And anything in the afternoon or evening is more gentle in nature. I almost always recommend yoga or something like yoga, Tai Chi if yoga's not your thing, gentle water aerobics to help people get over the hump of adrenal fatigue before they return back or start fresh into a big and robust exercise program. So to wrap this up, one question I get asked repetitively is, what is the one thing I can do right now to help? And I'll answer it the same way I did last episode. When you get out of bed in the morning, do not pick up or look at your phone until you have done one aspect of self-care. avoid those micro traumas of being distracted by your phone. And that little micro trauma occurs over 1 million times a day. And in those morning hours, your brain is really fresh and it's in a special brainwave that's really, really impressionable. So before you look at that phone, do one aspect of self-care and then start your day off on the right foot. Thank you so much for listening to the Naturalistic Nurse Podcast. If you'd like to contribute to this podcasting effort of getting the word out on how to ditch Band-Aid fixes and shift to root cause resolutions that stick, be sure to subscribe, rate, and review, and I would be oh so grateful. Our next episode is our 100th episode, and we're talking about the largest organ in the human body, the skin, and we're going to talk about how to ensure that yours is as healthy as possible, free from acne and other skin issues from the inside out. Be well.